Hi, I'm Zoe Desmond, the founder of Frolo, the award-winning app for single parents that features both community and dating modes. And I'm also co-author, along with my wonderful friend Rebecca Cox that I made through Frolo, of the book How to Be a Happy Single Parent. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Frolo podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Hannah Strong. Hannah is the founder and psychotherapist at My Thriving Child. Hannah, welcome to the Frolo podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm really excited to have a conversation with you and learn more about you and the wonderful work that you're doing. So to kick off, what is the work that you're doing? What is My Thriving Child?
Great question. Yeah, so My Thriving Child is professional for me as a psychotherapist, but it's also personal. So I'm a divorced mum. I've got 2 kids, and My Thriving Child was born out of my divorce, actually. So as a therapist going through divorce, I was so acutely aware of all of the research showing children whose parents are divorced, of them having a lower quality of well-being. And I just couldn't let it be my children's story. I was just so determined it would not be their story. And I actually vividly remember one night I was in bed. I couldn't sleep because I always had that churning anxiety feeling in my tummy, those thoughts running through my head. How was I going to make it okay? How was I going to make it okay for the kids? And I got up, went into my son's room. He was sleeping peacefully. You know, they just look so sweet when they're sleeping. I switched these little glow lights on that he has around his bed. And his cover pulled right up to his chin and his face was kind of shining out in the light. And it was in that moment I was really struck by his vulnerability and how reliant he was on me making this situation okay for him. And I just stood there and just silently cried. Look at him there. But there was a shift that happened for me. And in that moment, I promised him that all of that research linking children who had divorced parents to them having a lower quality of well-being was not going to be his story. And it was not going to be my daughter's story either. And I went back to bed, but I went back to bed with a fire in my belly. And when I woke up, everything was going to change. And I pulled everything together that I knew from my therapy background. I did additional training. I looked at all of the research and basically put together a framework that parents can follow in order to ensure that their children don't just survive divorce, but thrive through it, because it is actually so possible if you know how. And My Thriving Child is all about filling that knowledge gap for parents, giving them the tools that are backed by science and psychology to ensure that their children thrive through divorce and beyond.
I absolutely love that. And it is so important that we change that outdated, toxic narrative about, have to stay together for the kids, or, children of divorce, can't thrive in the world, or, end up in jail, and, all of this.
Yeah.
Really, really unhelpful, outdated. And so I'm really, really pleased that you're doing the work you're doing. I love your story about how, when you saw your son sleeping in bed and having that moment of there's no turning back. And I really relate to that. I really remember that moment for me when I decided to set up Frolo, and it was almost a feeling of the blinkers going down, and that's it, locked in, fire in my belly. So I really strongly identify with that, because there was such a moment when that decision was made and there was no going back.
Love that.
And I think it really highlights how it's, how passionate you are about this work, and how it's from a place of passion and purpose. So how old were your kids at that time?
My kids were young. So they were 1 and 3. It's scary no matter what age your kids are. People come to me when their kids are teenagers. People come to me when their kids are primary school age or infants still sometimes. And everyone always asks me, what's the best age for me to get a divorce? Should I do it now? Should I wait a few years? When's the best age? research shows that children can find it more difficult between the ages of 7 and 11. But actually, what children need more than anything, which the research speaks for, is they need their parents to be happy within themselves. And that is what produces a happy child. If you're there and you're stuck in a very difficult relationship, your child will be carrying that, and it's much better for them and for their well-being to not be carrying that. So for anyone in that place, I'd say don't get stuck up in the numbers and, oh, what age should they be? And then beating yourself up, oh, I should have waited, or I should have done it before. The time that feels right is the time that's right for you, and it will be the time that's right for your children.
Yeah, that is such an important piece of reassurance. It's what is going to make the parent feel like, yeah, the happiest version of themselves. Not that it's easy to feel happy in a lot of, separation and divorce situations, because most often people do go through, a really challenging time navigating it, even if it's going to be for the best. But absolutely, just being able to be, kids pick up on energy, and they know they can they can read the room. So I think that is really important to keep in mind. And so what was your situation with your breakdown of your relationship? Was that coming for a while, and did you kind of have an inner battle with, how long do I try and make this work, or what were your personal circumstances? Or because of the work that you're doing, were you much quicker to get to, no, this is what I need to do for myself?
Oh, I had such an inner battle. And I think there's always a build up. There's always an inner battle, whether that's more subconscious going on behind the scenes or whether it's very conscious for a very long period of time. There's always a battle, because the person that you've been with and you've had a child with, they are a key attachment figure in your life, or they have been a key attachment figure in your life. And from a brain wiring perspective, it's very hard to sever that attachment. And as well, your whole lives are kind of merged into each other, not just with your child, but probably with your house and everything. And actually unpicking all of those things is so scary. It feels like your life is falling down to rubble and you've got to rebuild it all again. And when you're on the edge, not knowing whether that decision is right or not, it can feel really scary, because you only know what it's like to be in the relationship. You don't know what it will be like to be on the other side of the relationship. And our brains really like certainty. And that's sometimes where we can get into this stuckness, because certainty, even if it's a certainty that we don't enjoy, feels safer than the uncertainty of something that could potentially be better for us or for our child. And so therefore, there is this period where we just get stuck in the in-between, trying to figure out which way we want to go.
And how old are your kids now? And so that they were 1 and 3 at the time when you decided to set up my Thriving Child? Was that at the same time as the breakdown of your relationship?
So they are, yes. So it's 5 years on now. I didn't set up my Thriving Child straight away. I took some time to process everything myself. Processing your divorce yourself is such a huge part of you being able to rebuild from the rubble. So actually you rebuild from this solid foundation that's based on you and who you are as a human being and how you want to live and what you think is best for your children, rather than trying to rebuild with a lot of the same old blocks, and you are accidentally building virtually exactly the same thing. So I took some time to just sit in the rubble a bit and figure things out and figure out, okay, do I still want this brick? Is this useful for me to build my new foundation? Oh no, I don't think that's great actually. What about this one? Yeah, I'll keep that one. Well, I think I need some new ones actually. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to get some new ones and I'm going to learn this. So I kind of spent some time just building this new foundation for myself, both practical, emotional, and yeah, mental. And then from there, once I felt like I'd got myself into a position, I was then really determined to go out and help others that were in the same space I was in.
What was your biggest challenge during that time, during following the end of the relationship with your children's father? What was your biggest challenge? Was there anything that you really struggled with more than other aspects?
The following is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp. I want to talk about mental health for a minute. Being a single parent comes with its highs and lows, and as single parents, it's so important to make sure we look after ourselves in the process. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to BetterHelp, the online therapy service that's here to support you every step of the way. With BetterHelp, you can connect with registered therapists from the comfort of your own home. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or just need someone to talk to, they're here to help. Plus, as a Frolo member, you get an exclusive 25% off your first month. Just visit betterhelp.com/Frolo. That's betterhelp.com/Frolo.
The biggest thing for me was the kids. Actually, how am I going to not just make them okay through it, but how am I going to make sure they thrive through it? I'm not interested in my kids just being okay and getting by. I'm like, no, that wasn't my vision for you when I gave birth to you. You know, when I gave birth to you and held you in my arms for the first time, I didn't look at them and think, oh, well, I hope you survive and you're okay, you get through this. I just with every cell in my body wanted them to thrive and have the best life ever. And the divorce was really hard for me because I felt like it was a huge thing that was going to jeopardize that. And that is the thing that just sat with me and took me a long time to process. Hence me dedicating virtually my whole life to it now. How I was going to ensure that they thrived.
Yeah, because my son, he is 8 now, and his dad and I broke up when he was 1. So it's been 7 years, and I can't imagine that my son ever remembers us being together. But actually, even still, he does still ask questions. He does
Yeah.
still, wonder why can't we be together?
Yeah.
I think just it goes, it can be surprising sometimes the things that he comes out
Yeah.
with, which show that he is, has this kind of, I suppose, wishful thinking aspect, or even just, I remember him being maybe, I think when he was about 4 or 5, something kicked in where he was kind of struggling more than normal. And and some, through Frolo, through some of the amazing friendships that I've made with other single parents through Frolo, I was able to learn that it must be a stage, a developmental thing around that time, because other friends from Frolo, their kids at the same age were also experiencing the same things, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in a way reassuring for me to know, and also for us to be able to kind of support each other through that. And I'm just wondering, how have your kids been in the 5 years, and have you seen kind of ups and downs, and have there been different stages for each of them that you've had to ramp up the support?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because it's really common, especially when you separate when your children are younger, that actually it seems like, well, they're probably not going to remember it, and therefore there won't be that much processing to do. But actually, no matter what age your children are, when you separate, there is always a grief process they have to go through, because it is a loss, even if it's something that they can't remember. It's a loss of something they perhaps see others have, and they wonder why they don't have it themselves, that kind of conventional family unit. And if you're separating, you've got teenagers or kids maybe primary age, they feel that grief more immediately. They're very aware of everything changing, and that's hard. But then if you've got very small children, you start to see them almost just process that grief a bit later in life. So they then just notice, oh, my best friend's got mum and dad at home in one home. Oh, and I go between two homes, perhaps if you're co-parenting, and then, oh, why have I got that? Oh, am I missing out? It's just figuring out the world. And as they grow and their comprehension of the world expands, they come to you with more stories and questions. Especially, I think, as they get into teenage years, they start to understand more about relationship in general, what makes relationship work, what makes relationship not work. And they start to question, okay, why did mum and dad's relationship not work? And how does that fit in with me? Does that mean I can have a relationship that works? Or does it mean that I won't be able to because mum and dad won't able to? Where's my kind of place in the world? And how do I make sense of relationship in general? So there are different times in which children process different parts of the divorce. And to begin with, it tends to just kind of be practical things all the way leading up to more of the teenage years, where it's actually the crux of relationship in general and how relationship works.
And so what with your own children, were there any particular moments or points or ages that really, that you felt, okay, well, yeah, this is clearly they're navigating a stage of the grief or piecing things together, and what were you able to do for them during that time?
Yeah, great question. I think I've been very aware of kind of at the ages and stages. And one of the brilliant things about equipping yourself with the knowledge you need to support your child through your divorce, which isn't just have the conversation, they'll process it in a few months. This is a whole childhood of processing the various things that come up. But understanding, okay, well, this stage is likely to come up. I'm going to preempt that by reading them books about it. So I'm going to help them make sense of whatever things are going to come up for them before they actually come up. So when my son started school, I was aware that he would start to compare his family unit with other children's family units, because he would then probably be invited for more play dates. He'd start to see how other people lived. And I wanted him to connect the dots in his head in the right way, in a way that would build a solid foundation for him, and kind of solid emotional, mental foundation in terms of processing divorce in the right way. So at that point, probably 6 months before he started school, I read him lots of books about having two homes. I wrote a little book about different types of families. Nothing fancy, just wrote it down and drew a few stick men and that kind of thing. But I helped him to understand that, oh, in this home, they've got two mummies. In this home, they just have a daddy. In this home, they've got a mummy and a daddy. And all of them are lovely setups. Look at the beautiful thing about this setup and the beautiful thing about this setup. So already, before he's asking himself those questions, he's got this core understanding that actually all families are different, and all families are beautiful in different ways.
That is so important. And it is one of the things that I think I am most proud of about Frolo and about the Frolo community, that my son Billy has had such access to other single parent families, because that's often who we're spending our free time with, at the weekends. And it's amazing. It's amazing that, I suppose, it takes away the feeling of other, because it's like, okay, no, it's not that I'm the only different one. My parents being in two different homes, we have so many friends who have the same setup, or it's just or it's kind of solo parent by choice kids. And I think that's so important for children of single parent family homes to experience, much like the books that you were saying that you read. Are there any books that spring to mind that you think are very helpful?
For super young kids, there's a book called Two Homes by a guy called Alex. Can't remember his surname now, but if you Google it, it'll be on Amazon. And that's a really nice way to just introduce the concept to children, potentially even before you separate. So it's about kind of preempting what's coming up. Okay, how do I introduce the concept of two homes? Okay, we'll start to read a book about it, where actually in the book, this boy has two homes and he loves it. He has a lovely life. So already there's this foundation of people have two homes and people have a lovely life having two homes. Then when you have the conversation that actually you're separating and they're going to have two homes, what your child then does is they search their brain for knowledge they have on this subject. And they then search, and that's the knowledge that they find, a piece of positive knowledge. So it's almost like whatever stage is going to come up, feeding your child's brain with positive knowledge that's going to help them to feel secure about that specific thing. So when they do ask the question or there is a conversation, they've got that foundation to come back to.
Absolutely. And in terms of those in a co-parenting situation where the children are going between two homes, how important is it, the co-parenting relationship? Obviously, that it's not always possible for co-parents to have, you know, an amicable, friendly relationship going on. You know, there's a lot of people have to parallel parent, or sometimes people are going through very high conflict, you know, divorce situations and dealing with lawyers and courts and lots of other stressful things. So what's your view on that? And what about, you know, how can we support kids depending on which type of category we fall into?
Yeah, great question. So the co-parenting relationship is so important, but also keeping in mind that actually we only have control over our part in the co-parenting relationship, and it's up to us to manage our part, the things that we can control. And if the co-parent doesn't want to come to the table in a way that we feel is beneficial for our child, there is really nothing that we can do about that. But there is a lot of research to show that children need one key attachment figure to be a secure base for them, to support them in order for them to have a good level of well-being and to turn out a healthy, happy, well-rounded individual. So I think in these circumstances, when it comes to co-parenting, as parents, we so desperately want to get it right for our kids, and it can feel really hard that, say, 50% of it is completely outside of our control, or the co-parenting relationship might be outside of our control. And actually focusing on, well, what can I actually control? My thoughts, my feelings, my actions. What can I do with those things? I'm going to help my child to process any grief that there is around, say, mum and dad not having an easy relationship or not being able to be in the same room at the same time. I'm going to hold space for them and allow them to be able to talk about it. I'm going to be that secure base where they can come to me with all of those thoughts and feelings. And I, as their parent, can park my stuff and my hurt around the co-parenting relationship and just be there for them in their hurt.
I think that is key. And I think just for myself, once I made that switch in my brain of the only way I can be a good parent is if I make sure that at all, you know, every second in the day of my son's life, he is being, you know, supported and looked after and parented in the way that, you know, I think is right for him, you know. And it is so hard. It's so hard because it feels unnatural to almost relinquish, you know, that sort of control maybe is I don't know if that's the right word, but you just feel so responsible for,
Mm.
you know, for our kids. So it is very hard to get to that place. But I think bearing in mind what you said about just really kind of focusing, pouring our energy into being that loving, safe, nurturing space when they are within the parameters of what is possible, instead of pouring our energy into, you know, trying to, banging our heads against a brick wall, often
Yeah,
trying to
which is
kind of
so
convince.
common. Yeah.
It's so common.
Mm.
So bearing that in mind, which is very reassuring, I'm sure, for many, many parents to hear that is, you know, a really reassuring that a child just needs, you know, one solid, safe, secure parent in order to thrive. What else do children need in order to thrive? What else do children of single parent families need? What is the best way to ensure that they have, you know, a happy, safe, loving childhood?
Yeah. Okay. Huge question. Um, so where do I begin? There is a lot uh, that they need, but it's all so possible if you know how to give it. I think one key thing, if I'm going to kind of pick one out of it all, would be attachment, and children actually need to feel securely attached to at least one key caregiver. So, you, whoever is listening to this, they need to feel securely attached to you in order for them to grow up to be able to have healthy adult relationships of their own. And so, what happens is when a parent or when a child sees their parents getting divorced, they see their two caregivers, let's say mum and dad, who they believe were connected by love or maybe the family unit, become disconnected or become unattached. And so the child looks at this and thinks, okay, this is all subconscious. And they think, okay, so if mum and dad were connected or attached by love or the family unit, what's attaching me to mum? What's attaching me to dad? Oh, that's love too, or that's family too. So if that attachment, that mum and dad attachment, can break or change, can the attachment from me to mum or me to dad change or break? Our children will never be able to articulate this to us because it's like a subconscious brain wiring, but it's a survival need. So in order to survive, their brain believes that they need to be securely attached to their caregivers. And if they don't feel securely attached, you'll see all kinds of big behavior and big emotions and potentially lots of clinginess or even lots of avoidance and pushing away, because your child is trying to keep themselves safe and they're thinking, how can I get back into secure attachment with my caregiver? And they have to be in secure attachment with one of them. And I think that is almost the foundational piece to everything else. You know, they need certainty, they need to have a sense of control over their own life, they need so many other things. But if the attachment isn't kind of, I guess, solid. And it's not because parents don't love their kids that it's not solid. It's because they don't have the knowledge to understand what's going on in their brain in order to soothe that and help them to understand that just because mum and dad's love's changed doesn't mean their love's going to change. It's so much more than just explaining it in words with our children. They've got to really understand it and feel it.
Is there any guidance on, you've said that it's more than explaining it in words, how can we show them in a way that makes them understand them and feel it, outside of, I suppose, the norm of, you know, what most of us are doing in the daily grind every day with our kids, and also, you know, trying to make sure they feel loved and nurtured and supported and heard and seen. Is there anything in particular that we can do to reassure them in their attachment to us?
Yeah, good question. So there's there is the nurture side, nurture side, so making sure they feel seen and heard and understood as much as we can, which, by the way, you don't need to do it 100% of the time. Research shows you need to get that right about 30% of the time for your children to feel securely attached to you. So don't put yourself under immense pressure whilst you're already under immense pressure trying to juggle everything else in life. But there are a number of other ways. It's also helping our children to cognitively understand that the mum and dad attachment is different to the child parent attachment, and being very explicit about that. And that's something I help parents talk through with their children. Depending on what age they are, you kind of have to approach it in a different way. And one of the really key things is actually role modeling secure attachment in our relationship with our child. So our children, they don't do what we say, they do what we do. So how do we role model secure attachment to our children? There are probably 3 different styles of attachment that you might see playing out. One would be codependent, or maybe more of an anxious attachment style, and that would be parent and child just finding it very difficult to be away from each other. And when child is removed from the parent, the child feels like they're not okay without the parent, or and they feel like the parent isn't okay without them. And the parent feels that too on the other way. And it's quite a kind of clingy, anxious relationship. And then we have an independent or a more avoidant attachment style, and that would be parent and child, where they feel comfortable being emotionally removed from each other. Even if they're physically in the same space, they might be sitting with each other watching TV, but actually opening up and saying what's on the inside, it doesn't feel safe. And there's an avoidance, there's a kind of a push away. I don't want to open up to you. So that would be like more independent, avoidant attachment. And then we've got an interdependent attachment. And this is the core of what we want to role model to our children. And that would be a more secure attachment style. So that's where we have parents and child who are able to come close emotionally and physically and open up. And they know that they will be held in whatever emotional state they're in by their parent. And their parent knows and feels secure that they can hold their child in whatever emotional state their child is in, and kind of park the stuff that's going on for them. And then when they're apart from each other, parent feels safe and secure, child feels safe and secure. So, and they can move in and out of closeness and being far away. And that, if we can role model that to our children, is setting them up for such good relational dynamics in their adulthood, and setting them up with basically a blueprint of what healthy relationship is. And our children need us to role model to them what healthy relationship is in order for them to find it later in life.
Otherwise, their future partners are going to point to their mothers and blame us for their wayward attachment styles.
Yes,
yes, that makes sense. And attachment styles, I mean, it's come up so much actually in the Frolo podcast in lots of different ways, whether it's dating or the ensuring that we kind of create the most healthy attachment for our kids from early on. So it's really interesting. So if someone is listening to this and thinks, well, if I wanted to work with Hannah, what does that look like? Or, what would be the benefit, or what does it look like working with you?
Yeah, a good question. So I run a 7-week program which helps take parents from where they are to where they want their child to be and where they want to be in themselves. So it's basically like a boot camp, giving you all the information and the nurture and the support that you need to get it right for your child. If you imagine that divorce almost like causes a wound for our child, an emotional wound, you have to learn how to be a doctor in order to heal that wound. And you wouldn't take your child to a doctor who didn't have any training. And my 7-step program is basically the training you need to understand what's going on with your child and how to heal those emotional wounds that are brought on through divorce. And I also work in one-to-one work through therapy and coaching, and also got an amazing free masterclass for anyone that's interested, exclusively for Frolo listeners. I think there's going to be a link in the show notes, but that is a 3-part masterclass which will give you a roadmap for getting this right for your child.
Amazing. Well, I have no doubt that there are a lot of people in the Frollo community that will be interested, because I think one of the things that binds everyone in the Frollo community together is wanting to be the best parents we can be to our kids. So so that is amazing. Yes, the masterclass, the free masterclass for the Frollo community, will put the details in the show notes of this episode. And I know you're going to run a virtual meetup for on the Frollo app as well, which is very, very exciting. So we will get all of the details of that out as well with this episode. And Hannah, as a final question, if there's someone listening and they feel in despair about how they're going to, support their child, or feel, even despite what we've discussed in this episode and a lot of the reassurance that you've provided, if there's somebody in that headspace of what have I done, and my kid is definitely going to be worse off because they're in a single parent home, and how can I possibly figure this out? Is there, what would you say to that person?
Firstly, I get it. I've been there, and it's a horrible, horrible, guilt-ridden space to be in, and it's a really just hopeless space. I actually call that space unfairly trapped, and it feels trapping, and it feels like, oh my goodness, is this just now my life? Is this just now my children's life? I can't see any way to make this okay for them. And it feels unfair because no one's ever told you how to get your child through a divorce. And yet it's the most important thing for you to get right in their childhood. And the anxiety and the pressure of that can keep us in this stuck space. So firstly, I empathize, and I've been there. And what I would say is, get yourself on that free masterclass. It's going to give you the information that you need to, frankly, give you the hope that actually, it can be done. There is research to show that it can be done. This isn't just a pep talk. It is so possible. I just need to know how. And I am here every step of the way to show any parents how they can ensure their children thrive their divorce, even if it's a super tricky, difficult divorce, or difficult co-parenting relationship, or no co-parenting relationship. With the right tools, you can help your child heal and thrive.
This is such important work that you're doing. So I'm so glad that this work exists, that there's this kind of a course and a masterclass to support single parents, because there's just so much to navigate in single parent life, finances, childcare, just anyway, endless things. But obviously us just wanting to know that we are giving our kids the best chance in life and supporting them emotionally is at the core of it all. So so yes, well done on creating My Thriving Child, and really excited to be able to support some of the Frollo community as well, with this work that you're doing through the free masterclass.
Yeah, great. I'm really excited to connect with everyone in the app as well. So fire anything over. If you've got any questions, watch the masterclass. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram. It can feel a very lonely journey, which is why you're all, on the Frollo app and connecting with each other. And you don't have to do the the child side of it alone either.
Amazing. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. And thank you so much to everyone for listening. And we will see you next time. And that's a wrap for this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then I have one small favour to ask. Please can you take a minute to subscribe to the Frolo podcast and give us a rating and review? This really helps other single parents who might benefit from it find us. The Frolo app, which is fully user verified for user safety, is available on the Google Play Store and the App Store, and you can find out more info and download links at www.frolo.com or follow us on Instagram @FroloApp. And you can purchase your copy of our book, How to Be a Happy Single Parent, at all the major book retailers. Until next time, have a great week.